Perfect. All right. I guess we are good to get started. This one's going to be a little bit more relaxing, guys. I've got two pigments to work on off the bat. I've got my blues and I've got my whites. And the reason why I want to start with those two is I want to capture all the details I could possibly want and then have that framing, underlying, creating our hula girl for the next few layers. Zelo, welcome. Yum, 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 yum. All right. All right, all right, all right. So, fresh canvas, and we're going to be creating a dancer who's in this sort of position. So let's see how we go. Hey, tiny dude. Now, I did have a phone around here somewhere. There we go. There we go. Beautiful. Just like that. Just getting a few little bits and pieces. All the little things that I should have had set up long before I start these lives. I do now. Here we go. Bring this over to here. Spin that around there. There we go. There we go. And lower that down there. Perfect. We are about ready to slash the few first bits of paint onto this canvas, which is going to be pretty fun if you ask me. Pretty fun. So many legs to watch out for around here to make sure we get in the right position. That should be perfect. Hey Bobby, how we doing? Yes indeed. It is New Zealand. Sorry guys, I missed a few comments there. How to get rid of man boobs? Well, that's a great question. I hear it's possible, but I would focus on asking someone who's got far better understanding of personal training and health. But if you want to know about how to be wildly happy, create paintings and canvases, I'm your guy. Cheers, Steve. So we're kicking off today with a few bits of white and blue. I've got my blue already here. I've used a new technique for making the blue. This is French ultramarine. That's how intense it is. It's really, really powerful. So I would stream it, and I'm going to stream it in future, but this one time I needed to splice it myself because instead of using gouache paints, which are liquid from a tube, we've now used powdered pigments. And so I wanted to wear the correct masks and things like that, make sure I went through the process right to actually get the work sorted. Lavender, not normally. We will in this case. Now the picture we're doing, I'll show you up close, right up close. This is our picture, but as you'll see, aside from a few shadow areas, there's really not a whole lot of blue in it. It's got this amazing amount of warm colors and greens. So we're gonna see where that takes us. Okay. And we may have seen this one before, but one thing that I did on the previous one, you may have noticed, is I zoomed in a lot more. And the zoom in, we actually ended up cutting off her feet a little bit. And she sort of seemed like instead of moving out through the environment, she was being crushed into a box. And it's got to feel more explosive. So, anyway, let's get started. Is that Van Gogh, or are you thinking of Picasso? I think Picasso had a blue face. Maybe Van Gogh did too, though. Who knows? All right. Now, it's not just this colour I've got. Remember, I've also got a delightfully powerful titanium white. There we go. Hey, Lavender, you're all good. You can see how the amount of pigment I've added into this paint, it really doesn't split itself up at all. Wherever I want it to go, it lands with a lot of power, presence, which is good. Everything's good. Everything's good. Happy time here in New Zealand. G'day, Mike. How we doing? Good to have you in here. Halloween's coming up, or has it been? I don't know, but the ghost is really cute. So the ghost is our animation of choice today. Sounds a bit scratchy. Let me see if I can fix that for you. How'd I do, team? Did I remove the scratchiness? Should be better now. That's good, Mike. That's good. So, lots of wild blue strokes. We want to capture every area with shadow in it. And then we're going to cut back with just white. And that'll allow us after that to do a whole bunch of amazing washes after the fact for a bit of fun. Thanks, Bobby. There we go. And it always makes me laugh, Bobby and Mike, that what's going to happen now is when we do the live TikTok replay on YouTube, there's going to be this funny little ghost popping up. And I love it on YouTube because it doesn't give you any context of that. It just sends a ghost or a cowboy hat or glasses. I actually had someone DM me and ask me why I kept wearing a cowboy hat in the live streams. Turned out it was because I was confused at first, but it was because obviously the gift of a cowboy hat puts it on me. Junior, it's 6:13. But yeah, it is a little bit later than our usual streaming time, there's no doubt. Sorry, I'm just going to scroll back up there to catch it. Utilizing color theory is important. Lavender, there's a lot to unpack there. Color theory is important. Knowing the rules is important. Knowing the rules so you can break them properly is more important. Importanter. I know that's not a word. It's really, really important to know what the rules are to understand color theory, only so you can break it correctly. I say break it correctly, so you know when you're breaking the rules and when you're not. When you're exploring new territory, or when there's someone out there in the world that can teach you something about what you're trying to currently do. So what I'm saying there is learn everything you possibly can and then break the rules. Just like Van Gogh, just like Picasso. If you lined up all of Picasso's work, likely some people would say his later work looked more childish than his earlier work. That's because he learnt the rules of how to paint like a master, and then he spent the rest of his art career breaking those rules, breaking shapes, turning things into cubes and unorthodox creations. Point being, know the rules to break them. You're behind on a class exhibition. Don't worry, I reckon you'll catch up. So the goal here is to get full coverage of the paint. coat the whole canvas with either white or blue. And then after that, we can come on back with some really popping, powerful colors. And this has, you'll notice this blue is absolutely popping, guys. Hilary, you don't have to like Cubism to respect what he was trying to do, what he was trying to capture in terms of what he was doing. And Bray, I reckon you are a strong, independent person who can buy a canvas from a store and buy a gesso or a paint and coat it yourself. And we'd all be very, very proud of you for getting out there and doing something like that. You don't like mannerism. Mannerisms are pretty important. Mannerisms help you identify people. The inspo pick, you're going to start seeing the actual image coming together a little bit more as we go. You're going to see the ground coming in here. You'll start to see a figure coming up here with her arm coming out this way. And you'll start to see a little bit of a rock face over here. I'll just add in, yeah. See, this is the one part I really feel like we missed out on, Steve, the previous time. These trees over here that provide that perspective. There we go. Beautiful. Just like that. And then coming up here and arcing out this way. This is where. Beautiful. Beautiful. If it looks that'd be pretty cool. Actually, Ashley, we haven't done an enemy pick before, so maybe we need to. I didn't know Van Gogh was going around with a wheelbarrow, but it sounds very practical. I reckon that was quite an effective way of doing it, rather than trying to carry one under each arm. And good morning, Brittany. Good to have you here. And good morning, LJ. Sorry for missing your comment before. Just scrolling back a wee bit so I can catch up. Yeah, fair enough, Hilary. Look, at the end of the day, have your own preferences on artwork. It's totally okay. Don't think that you need to like something because everyone else likes it. You can appreciate that everyone else likes it, but then you can do your own thing. That's the beauty of having your own individual likes, wants, and preferences. You can exercise them. The most terrifying thing, though, is not exercising them. What I mean by that is realizing that you know what you want and then deciding to follow the herd. So you're not only aware of what could make you happy, but you're doing something that's not that. That's what breaks you over long periods of times. Elongated bodies. Sounds buzzy. Doesn't sound like my killer fish, but at the end of the day, it's important for art to... It's funny because I sort of drive myself in one part of art into the vitality, into the joyful nature of playing with paint, into a primal, raw sort of style. But it's important for all the little aspects of art to sort of be explored, to understand the spectrum of what's available to you as an artist or as a viewer. Good on you, Lavender. Get into it. Get yourself a canvas. Just quickly, swap to a smaller brush. So the smaller brush in here now is going to look fairly similar, but it's reduced the size by half. So that way we can start playing around in a few of these smaller areas with our detail. And even though we're early in the piece and we're trying to capture distinctive shape, we've got to make sure that our paintbrush still has that fun, lively, sporadic flow to it. It doesn't allow itself to become stagnant. It's always a risk. There we go. Beautiful. Anything that's too modern, you're like, great, but not for you. Well, then the next thing to do is deep dive that and understand why that is. You may already know, but sometimes It's fun to have the answers to these things. Usually what makes me turn off artwork is I feel like the person's, thanks Santiago, appreciate you mate. I feel like the person's given and given and given to make it in a way that was actually sacrifice, not growth. The paintings I love the most, or the artworks I love the most, is when you feel like the artwork that's been made has grown the person who made it. That they actually, the adventure they went on to create it made them more, in a cheesy kind of way. Not that they were damaged by it or broken by it. And like you'd say, but what about Van Gogh? Well, I don't think Van Gogh was broken by his art. I think for the life of that tortured soul, the only reprieve he got where he felt true beauty and happiness was when he was making his art. And so I don't think Van Gogh's art was actually a labour of sacrifice, but more the only part of the world that he found himself in that made him truly happy. And so I'm not saying artists should find the world a miserable place, but I am saying that the artwork that gets created should be something that makes you happy, should be something that grows you. It should be something that other people see. Do you know when you see a piece of artwork on a wall in a gallery and you go, oh, wow, beautiful. But you don't think, I wish I was there to see that be made. When you think the latter, that's when you're looking at great art, because that's when you're looking at something that you subconsciously know has a beautiful process, a process such that you'd like to be a part of it. Ashy, that is one of my favorite scenes in movie history. There's a scene, if you haven't seen it, I really recommend you look it up. It's a scene with Van Gogh. It's obviously an actor in Doctor Who. And what happens is they bring Van Gogh into the future where he can see his artwork. I haven't seen the whole episode actually, shocking, but I have seen that one scene and it's moving. I think I teared up the first time I watched it because it's sort of a really, really fun thought experiment of getting someone like Van Gogh and putting them into the future to really see where they've come from. JS Media, yes, I was at Tauranga Boys College. Have I visited it again? Not recently. Van Gogh suffered from mental disorders. I think Van Gogh's art and Van Gogh's mental disorders, it's a hard one. Are you going to say that you need mental disorders to make art? Or that Van Gogh's art was uniquely different because of his mental disorders? Or could he be a beautiful person who made the art that he made, not in spite of his mental disorders, but they didn't define him? The individual that was his character, that was who he was, made his artwork. What he saw beautiful as a person became the art. Now, the struggles that he was facing in life, yes, maybe reflected in his emails, his mail, that he sent, and maybe reflected in some of the brushstrokes that he made in some of his works. But in aggregate, most of it is made by a man who knew, with the brushstrokes from his palette and his brush, and the colours from his palette and the brushstrokes from his brush, that he could capture and create beauty in the world, which I think is pretty cool. Combination, I feel that too. I think it's never black and white, guys. I really believe that. If your answer about an artist, artwork, philosophy is black and white, that's a bad sign. Think of it like Sith from Star Wars. Black and white. When you deal in absolutes, only a Sith does that. So, in that sense, if you're dealing with a grey area and it's a little bit of both things and it's not fully quantifiable, now you're thinking like a Jedi. Good. That's where you want to be. Here we go. Yes, he had some letters he sent to his brother Theo, some of which he wasn't so happy. And yeah, that's the reality of the situation. But at the same time, like I say, do you think he was miserable while he was painting? Or do you think while he was creating the paintings, it was the one time where he was truly happy? I just put that question out there. Ooh, I haven't seen the film called Loving Vincent. Sometimes when you go to university or you end up just reading papers and theory on it without actually getting the romance behind it. Sorry, Chad, I missed your zinger. I'll come back to it. Here we go. Lavender, not true. Not true at all. Lavender's just said that most artists are in some way sad. They say, you're all good, Lavender. They do say that. They're wrong. They're very, very wrong. They say that artists are in some way sad, and that makes them good in expression. Artists are sometimes more in touch with their feelings to actually express themselves, definitely. But it's a mistake to think that emotion you connect with has to be sadness. That's been devastating for a lot of artists. Actually, you can use joy, vitality. All these other emotions are sitting inside you, waiting to be brought out. It's your job as an artist to be somewhat of a conduit to transpose that onto a canvas. But to think that you need to, if you're going to create something, it's because negativity, once it actually seeds itself, it's able to manifest so much more easily. And that's why probably artists do go, well, I find it easier to allow negativity to flourish, and therefore I'll be sad while I create. It's heartbreaking, and it doesn't have to be that way. That's where art becomes a process of sacrifice, where it can actually be a process of growth and connection, and actually do something beautiful in and of itself before the actual finished result even exists. So let's not get it twisted. Sorry, I'm looking for Chad Zinger, but I haven't found it. Chad, you're going to have to... Ashy, well put. Well put. And hello, Ryan. Well, that's the point. It's a big deal. Hello, Lauren. Guys, what was the pun from Chad? You have to resend it, Chad. I've missed it. I've clean missed the pun. Naughty me. And then this is going to come to here. There we go. Beautiful. Do I know who Richard O'Brien is? I know the O'Briens. They're family friends. But they're probably very, very different to the ones that you're probably speaking of. I would assume. Hello to Spain. Oh no, the zinger wouldn't have the same effect that it should. Probably not, but look, it's important we follow up on it. Would you do us the favour, Chad, and do it twice, or is it too late? AJ, that is not at all in any way, shape, or form what the stream's about. But what I can do for you, Chad, is if you hang around, not Chad, AJ, if you hang around and give me a chance, I would like to try and through sitting here in this little studio, through the camera, through these pixels, flying off to your phone through a network connection, make you a little bit happier. I'd like that. So if you give me a chance, I'll do that. But if you want to just keep scrolling to find someone to flex for you, look, I get it. You got to do what you got to do. But if you stay, I'd appreciate it, and I'd like you for it. I did. Maybe it's filtered. They do tell me they filter some of the things. Oh, I've got blue on my belt now. How about that? Played Riff Raff. Good on you, Junior. I think it did filter it. Must have been too funny for TikTok. Hillary, great question. We don't often do paintings not live. There'd have to be a very good specific reason for it, but usually we're painting on the lives. So we're doing these together every time. Because even if it's tough, even if I'm going through artist block, mental troubles, battles personally, whatever it might be, I want to bring you guys along with me. Now, you'd be like, well, is there any time where you actually shut up? And the answer is yes. Sometimes when we do these streams, I'll talk less and focus on the painting and allow the chat room just to run. And when I have the ability, I'll leap in here and talk when I can. And then sometimes we'll do a quick fire reel. So sometimes you'll find content where I've actually just made a video and I've done about a 40-minute absolute lightning session of slashing paint around. But that's not so common, guys. Usually I'm trying to share this process with you and do it together as a team, because that's like saying if you're a rugby team or a soccer team, hey, let's be a team, let's do this together. And then at each significant moment, you run off and do your own thing. It's not what it's about. I feel like more than just giving you a glimpse into the studio, this isn't just about that. It's about actually bringing you guys on the journey with me and allowing you guys to be a part of it. So as much as I can, I try and bring you on that. Except where dangerous chemicals are involved and I have to not stream them because I'm worried about my safety. So I bring you guys everywhere that doesn't affect my safety. There we go. But I will actually start doing some other ones with you guys now that I've got this perfected. And in terms of prepping the boards, they're still a no-go because the sanding is just so loud and obnoxious. But we can make those into stories. Not so fun stories, but stories. So, Saoban, did you have a announcement on the second part of that Van Gogh story? I was listening. I swear I was. Steve knows him. Steve knows him. Oh, jeepers. Look, the thing is, it's tough. And actually, it would make a good movie if you got Van Gogh and actually turned him into a... Here's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see a movie about Van Gogh, and call it a name, The Goat. That's what I'd call it, The Goat. And it would be a tragic ending, of course, but it'd be following Van Gogh like they followed Ray Kroc with the old Batman actor and the founder. It'd just be incredible. And it'd be just like the founder. It'd be heading in the direction of you think it's going to go right, and then it cascades as going terribly wrong. But hey, Sapphire, I'd watch that. That'd be my new favourite movie, without a doubt. Is that movie, speaking of favourite movies, is that movie about Bob Ross out yet? Hillary, yes I do, and I'm doing you guys a disservice because a lot of you guys are saying you'd like to get into painting, and I've been spending my time prepping the boards, sanding the boards, prepping the paint, and things like this, even down to washing the brushes, and not sharing it with you guys because there are little tricks I do, and it's little things that after 12 years, 15 years, you start to take these things for granted, but you can't because these are the things which actually have the biggest impact on helping you grow your own craft. So, I'm not saying you all want to go out there and wash some brushes, but I'm saying that it's weird where you find hints for your own life. It's never where you expect it. And what I mean by that is, for example, with art, it's not usually the artists that provide me my inspiration. Some of the best advice I've ever had about art and painting came from tradies, builders and plumbers. People who were doing things they took immense pride in, and they never saw themselves as artists themselves, but their viewpoint of something that you take immense pride in. Builders had said, if you want to build something great, you must view your craft as sacred. You've got to leave building projects. It was just incredible. There's some amazing people I've spoken to about that sort of stuff. And honestly, I'm kind of lucky. But I didn't get a typical. You'd always think, oh, if you want to be an artist, talk to artists. The best advice I ever got was from my ex-framer and old builder. He was the one when I started talking about things being sacred. That was his advice. He said, it has to be sacred because there's going to be pieces or building sites for him or jobs that end up going well over budget and becoming a serious challenge. But if you don't put your heart and soul into it and make it something truly special, regardless of what your time and the money and the whatever says, you'll never find satisfaction from this job ever. Because you'll know subconsciously as you take up new projects that you're willing to throw it all in the trash the moment the money doesn't work out. And he says, if that's your psychology towards it, you'll always know deep down that you won't sacrifice the money over pride for the job. So he said, you'll only have to do it a few times throughout your career. But as long as you do it, you can start projects knowing that you're willing to throw away all the money in order to make the project everything that it can be. And that's when you start making real art. That's what I felt anyway. Hillary, well, you're in the right place because I don't see that distinction. I believe the philosophy that combines things like jewelry making, like house building, like architecture, even things to I've seen some, it's funny, it's going to sound ridiculous, but my brother is a tax lawyer and he's done a lot of P&Ls and development of accounts and things like that through tech. And I've seen some stuff that borderlines on art with the way numbers work on an Excel sheet. Don't tell me that's not similar to actually crafting through paint or through, it almost felt like woodwork with everything hitting just the right marks to make it all work. It was incredible. But the point here is that the only reason why fine art like this is put on a pedestal and we say that's the only real art, that's incorrect. That's the only raw art. Forget the real part. It's all real art. Everything's real. If you're creating something and bringing it into the world through your imagination, that's art. And that happens on an Excel sheet as much as it happens on a canvas. But now we're going to talk about intention. If the intentions of the piece, if the intention of the piece alone is that you're selling expression or you're selling a feeling. So with an Excel sheet, it's supposed to improve a company, show a budget, help with the overall function of the business. Whatever it might be, the Excel sheet has that purpose. But the purpose of a picture is to express a feeling, to capture a moment, to allow us to see it and alter the way we think or our current mental state by simply being in the presence of it at that moment. That's very raw and niche. So it's not the only real one, but it's the most raw. If you said, I want something that'll vitalize me and make me happy in the foyer of my house, we're not going to put an Excel spreadsheet up there. That's incorrect. It's the wrong purpose. But, I mean, unless it was art. But something that was actually art, that was designed by an artist to actually transpose that feeling onto the canvas. That's why that's your job. It's so important to transpose whatever feeling you're trying to get. That's when we're talking about real, raw, authentic art. And that's separate from everything else. I just combined all the words. Raw art, different from real. I hope I didn't get too lost in my words there, team. I think I explained that. Soban, I don't quite understand where you're coming from there, but AK, welcome from Europe. I was over there, how long ago? Long time now. Jeepers, the time ticks by. I was in Europe 7 months ago. 7 months? 7 months. But now, provided I can get these pigment techniques absolutely sorted down to a T, I'm hoping that I can start traveling with the pigments because they're dust, essentially. Whereas I can't travel with paint. It's illegal, not illegal, but the airports don't like you going through them with vast amounts of paint. And you'd be like, oh, just buy it when you're over there. You can't make masterpieces with the paint in some countries. Like, for example, Indonesia. Though I love Indonesia to bits, I had to bring my own paint over there. Had to get it approved and all sorts of things. Because it was, the quality of paint you could get over there wasn't the high quality archival stuff that I wanted. It was good, but not perfect. And so what you're doing is you're sort of boxing yourself in to say, this is the maximum quality I'll allow while I'm in this country. But if I can get top world-class pigments in my checked-in luggage and then travel around the world and then create paint at different places by making it myself, now we're talking. Now we've got something that I'm going to enjoy. There we go. And Boombaluna. No, we're not Aussie. We are Kiwi, but you're so close. It's basically the same place. I like the Aussies. Gathered from his intro? Ah, yep. I changed that little intro statement. There was a big blurb there, guys. You may remember it. That was saying like, blah, 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 blah. Paints this, paints that. And I thought, I don't think anyone's even reading this. So I just said, welcome to the New Zealand Art Studio. So then it was more friendly. And if you do read it, you get a very, very quick idea of what's going on, the location you're in. And I hope that works. Actually, it's funny you say that, Hillary. I went to Canada and the US and I noticed huge differences between the two places. But between Australia and New Zealand, very, very little. So, yeah, if I said that to an American, that it's like Canada and the US, they'll be like, ooh, that's pretty different. But for us, it's actually far more similar than that. Or at least I've always felt like it was more similar than that, personally. Hey Howard, how we doing? Welcome on in. I had a boss called Howard at one point. He was a great guy. Very interesting way of thinking. One of those minds that would work on multiple levels and understand multiple things at once. Something most of us only wish we could do. There we go. Beautiful. Is like New York. Oh, interesting. When I went to New York, it was like nowhere else I'd ever seen. So incredibly unique. Really special. Really different. I guess it was accentuated from the fact that I'd never been to anywhere else other than New Zealand. And so when I did arrived in Australia and then arrived in San Francisco and then I flew to New York. And when I arrived in New York, I just remember seeing a 13-lane highway. I'd never seen that before, guys. 13 lanes, one after another. Wow. The scale of it. And you're sitting there probably thinking, we've got that in Colorado. But for me, you've got to understand, even in our biggest city, maybe 6 lanes, and only for a few kilometers, not for stretching as far as the eye could see. Toll booths going down into New York from the north, with so many lanes and cars everywhere. It's enough to give me anxiety, guys. Enough to give me anxiety, that's for sure. Oh dear. Ooh. Brittany, I didn't realise that. If I had to guess, Brittany, I would have said London. But South Africa, that's pretty cool. You know, I was hoping to go to Cape Town later this month, but I think plans have changed now. So we'll see. But a US visit may be on the agenda, and I'll let you guys know the moment I've got a better understanding of the itinerary. But obviously, with a baby girl on the way, we were planning a big US trip and popping around lots of places and doing lots of things. It may end up being slightly more, what's the term here? Subdued? Not subdued, smaller, more controlled, more less moving around. We'll see. We will totally see. But ooh, the UK. Tell me about the UK, because I've never ever been there. I hear London is atrociously expensive, which I would believe. But for me personally, I've got some friends over there actually. They've told me I should go over there and crash on their couch. And our first ever moderator on this TikTok stream is from London, which is pretty funky. There we go. We're just adding a little bit, if this looks a little bit slow, guys, we're just adding a little bit of texture into these waves in the background here, allowing them to flow over each other, bounce and cascade. It's the sort of thing that it's actually very, very far away as opposed to everything else. So I'm doing it with a lot more smaller biting strokes to build up textures in the back there. You might even notice it with a small amount of white that we are using in that area. You might actually notice that it looks like it's further back than the dress here, as if this comes out and this goes back. And you'll be like, wait a minute, yes, I can see that. Wait a minute, how's he done that? That's because the strokes here, even though it's in a few pixels, are longer, more broader strokes. And the ones that happen in here, even though it's subtle, are more chiselly and small. And there's these little gradient changes happening here, where there's more bold colors happening here. So our mind immediately says, okay, that's closer, and these parts must be further away. Now, that's getting quite involved in the craft aspect though. And so what's happening here is it's more occurring because we're just painting shapes, just capturing shapes. And it just so happens that coincidentally, that's the effect. But I won't normally go for effects, team. I won't normally think, okay, we want to make this happen, so I'm going to do this very, very intentionally. That's why I say learn the rule book, because as you're painting, it's so much easier to think, wow, okay, it's heading towards this effect or this outcome. Do we want to lean into that or lean away from that? And that comes from lots and lots of painting, guys. Know the rules, know all the tricks, so then you know when you're leaning into something, leaning away from something. So not that you can control the painting, but you can understand the chaos that you find yourself in. Usually it's not about escaping chaos. It's understanding. Understanding it when you're in the middle of it. There we go. Glenn. First off, I love your interest there, Glenn. No. There will be prints available, but as for the picture itself, the picture will not be available. This is a commission. And this one here is a very, very special commission. It's a special commission because this is in respect and memory and acknowledgement of what's happened in Maui. With terrible, terrible fires, the harrowing information. That didn't stop, guys. It didn't just become better all of a sudden. We stopped hearing about it, but the devastation that occurred over in Maui is, it puts a lump in your throat just to think about it. This picture here is celebrating that part of the world, and it wants to bring attention to it. remember? Almost like a memorial, guys. So, although it's a wonderfully colourful, vibrant piece that we're going to be making with movement and love and joy in it, the reason for its creation behind it has this terribly sad and harrowing and essence to it. But it's important that that tragedy doesn't become what the painting looks like. The painting has that beauty to represent or to acknowledge the tragedy that's occurred. That's what's occurring there. You're all good, Glenn. Sorry, mate. That being said, Glenn, if you PM me, DM me, there's a few pieces in my private collection at the moment that I can send you some pictures of. Obviously, no commitment. Just say, yo, show me that other stuff you were talking about on that stream. And I'll say, oh yeah, here you go, this, and this. And you'll be like, that's fantastic. Give me all of it. Or you'll be like, that's terrible. No wonder no one's bought it. No, my private collection is not available online, team. So at the moment, there's very, very few works. We used to have a few more, but we lost a few of them. And so I got pretty cagey about putting my last few online. I hate having an empty house in terms of artwork. I love having it full of pictures and art everywhere. And so, yeah, well said, Maui. Well said, Steve. We are Maui, strong, and we'll get through this. She symbolizes our strength and love of Maui. Bang on, bang on. And that's why, actually, we've come at it from a fresh start. Cheers, Glenn. We've come at it from a fresh start because the previous work we were doing, her movement was, I had it touching the edges of the canvas and it felt like she was being crushed in. When that's not strength, that's caging. And I wanted her to actually be that strength and love, to be not only captured on the surface, but look like she's gesturing out to the rest of the world and saying, here I am, kind of like a Bryan Adams song, and not caged and confined. That was really, really important. Not caged and confined, but actually strong and loving. So that's why we've got a little bit more space around this time. And just FYI, what is there? There is, going back to that private collection, there is Hercules. There's 3 or 4 people looking at Hercules right now, but no one's paid a deposit, so he's still up for grabs, which is pretty cool because I'm enjoying having him in the... I've put Hercules in the guest room of my house. Anyway, the Hercules is fantastic. And what was I going to say? I was going to say, I've got the Statue of Liberty, the green goddess, but she's not finished yet. I wanted to add a bit more, probably a bit more pink and magenta to her. So I wanted to label her the pink goddess. So it's like a play off the fact that the green goddess, which is the Statue of Liberty, to say that yes, it's the Statue of Liberty, but we've painted her in a different color palette. Just to be kind of fun, but different. A bit different. Hercules. Actually, it's not so much Hercules. It's not so much a work which is trying to be hunky like that. It's very much trying to be completely accurate to the statue depiction of Hercules. And if you read through Stephen Fry, his book on heroes, where Hercules features, it's pretty accurate to the description of him. But the one thing Stephen Fry doesn't get to embellish so much, which we did, is the more of a sensitive, emotional side of Hercules. So I wanted to capture that, Whether he did or didn't have that in mythology, our representation of him comes not only from mythology, but the Disney version of Hercules as well, which you get that boy, that young boy, singing he can go the distance, to then become the man, the bulging, brawn-covered man that he does become. A mighty, mighty man, tall and strong. But it's not that that man was never a boy. He was a boy. He was a kid who had dreams, who loved his parents, whose parents supported him to race off and chase his dreams. You don't get this idea that actually he's always been Hercules, although he always had the name. Once upon a time, he was young, singing about his dreams. That's okay. No, cutie. Absolutely not. No, we just start absolutely raw. And so as we go through these layers, there will be things that we gradually shift and move around. But the key to that is actually not getting overly hung up on little errors, but enjoying the overall complexion of the picture. I think it's really, really important that we don't, what's the term I'm looking for here? That we don't get way too hung up on controlling it from the very start. Otherwise, you never have fun. You never have that loose, wild feeling. And you're like, well, you don't need to have fun, just make the art. If you don't have fun, you can't transpose it onto the artwork. If you don't transpose it onto the artwork, people who look at it, the viewers, the clients, and anyone who looks at the piece will think, why do I not feel like that's as vitalizing, as wild and as fun as his other pieces? Transpose, have the fun and the joy, get lost in it. Don't create a blueprint of exactly how it's going to go. Put paint on the brush, get lost in the chaos, be ready for mistakes. You're using paint, you can cover up layers, it's okay. Make the mistakes, but start with fun. That's so important. Rose, you saw me at Art Battle. That's fantastic. I hope I was polite and kind. I'm not sure which Art Battle it was, but here we go. Fixed. Sorry, I was saying, I'm not sure how much of that you missed, but I was saying that when I look out at a scene, I can visually break it down to smaller shapes and colors and moments and see flickering how it would look in paint to how it looks in reality. And I thought that was something everyone could do. I just thought that was a reality. But it was only once I was speaking with the likes of, and this is where it comes back to, a builder and an electrician. about them wiring houses and wiring up businesses and in the ceiling with the electrical cabinets and actually building a building that doesn't exist yet but you have a plan for. They see it in a very similar way. Not through the idea of lights and colors and shapes, but in their own minds, what happens for them is they see all the wires and different currents and all this important stuff leading back to the network cabinet and the whole construction of the house and how it would work. That's not something that everyone can do, but their minds can. They're angled to being able to do that. In the same way a builder can see the 4x2, the structure of the walls, the cladding, the roof, the concrete floors, the bracing, the everything that creates that house. They have the vision of it before it even exists. So it's not that an artist's vision is special, it's just different. And you'll have your own special vision. In the same way a lady or a man, or I say a lady because my grandma would knit and make amazing sweaters. But she could see the sweater and how it was going to be and get all the seams and moments and sizings around it perfect. Before she'd even begun, she had the whole thing mapped out in her head because she could see it. That was in her mind. So everyone has their own kind of vision. In the same way, my brother, when he makes an Excel spreadsheet, he has a plan of how those numbers will interact and evolve and move and construct themselves on that digital spreadsheet. This is different kinds of vision. Now, this is where it comes down to with schools when we say, well, we can't really measure kids for intelligence off one parameter. We need multiple. And it's not that, it gets very, very challenging because now you're talking about education. But at a fundamental level, everyone does have a certain type of intelligence or a way of seeing the world. And if they can harness that and direct it correctly, they can make something really potent in order to make the world a better place. So that's what I reckon. Actually, if you see colours merging and forming, the first thing I hear or think of when I hear those words is that you would love working with things like watercolour, with ink, with pouring acrylics. And oh, cheers, Matthew. I appreciate you, mate. Yes, I do. I was saying earlier that not a lot of it's available right now. I've got 3 pieces in my house here in my private collection. And if you DM me, I can send you pictures of them. But apart from that, a lot of these works are commission based. So people will come to me and we'll work on a project together. So they'll bring their inspiration and I'll bring my method, craft, and creativity. And the goal behind that is that rather than me burning through inspiration and trying to find things that you guys will find interesting, for example, bring me your love, bring me your inspiration, bring me what really sets you alive and sell it to me. When I say sell it to me, don't just send me a picture of a dog and tell me to paint it. Who's a dog? Like Cassie, for example. Tell me about the dogs. Tell me your relationship with these dogs. Tell me how long you've had them for, what they mean to you. Let me get invested in the fact that Cassie is this loving, warm, joyful animal that brings joy to every day of your life and you care about like a human being inside your building. And all these, and the mannerisms that Cassie has and the way you feed Cassie in the morning and the expressions that she's got that are unique for her as opposed to any other dog get me so invested in it. So when I paint it, I just can't wait to capture Cassie's joy. Now that's the beauty of that. So the commissions are always really, really fun because provided you get that relationship and that connection, you can actually make something where you literally get this person's emotions, inspiration, and feelings, and you almost act like a conduit. You know how, think of like holding an electric fence and then touching someone. If so you know how it travels through? The paint is the person in the middle, and you're able to, woof. The electric fence being the client, the painter being the painter, and the person who gets the shock being the artwork. That's what I talk about when we talk about a shared journey, a process of connection. It's so important. And if you want a picture, a pretty picture of yourself and your partner or your dog, that's cool. I love that. You can ask an AI for it now. and it'll actually do a picture better than I can do it, more accurately with craft. Because how can I beat the most advanced robot that civilization's ever made? It beats me. But if you want something that actually comes from love and connection, that where a human being feels your inspiration, feels your joy and your love or your motivation to solidify and capture something, and is able to almost reflect it or be a conduit for it, like the electric fence analogy. I need to write that one down so I don't forget it, because that's a good one. That's when you get something very, very different. And I like that shock idea too, because it is like a boof. Wow, there it is. There's that thing. There's that thing that made me there's a visual rendition of the inspiration of why I wanted to do this, why I wanted to do this in the first place. That makes me feel good, makes me feel energized, vitalized. That's powerful. That's why art exists in its raw, crude form. That's a long answer, Matthew. You were asking a fairly basic question and you got a full-on lecture. I'm sorry, but and Brittany, it's funny you say that. My scholarship for art school was for sculpture. It wasn't for painting. I was a painter in high school, but like I tell you, I was strangling my craft. I took painting so seriously that I only did these my abstracts were so controlled. And I was doing these realism works and then controlled abstract, and all you could see was these I couldn't call them nice. That's the best way to say it. They're nice realism works, and then strangled abstract, where you're like, when you go from realism to abstract, where you're like, I'm going to plan out chaos, and it doesn't come out like that. It comes out like this, like imagine architectural plans to build a house, but the idea is to build just a pile of rubble. But every piece of rubble is meticulously planned out. That's what my high school was like. Not the high school, I loved my high school, but my high school art career was like. And because I didn't take my sculpture as seriously, I was free and loose and wild and joyful in it. And so that resonated. And they actually took my sculpture assignments, my boards we do in New Zealand, like big fold out assignment boards, and it travelled around an art show to all the schools for years. I didn't get the board back for like 8 years after high school, because they were taking it around this art show with other New Zealand artists and things, and showing that as the #1 example of sculpture excellence in New Zealand. But they never wanted my painting. Now, the reason they didn't want it is because I was strangling that craft, but I was free with sculpture. So, don't get me wrong, I am definitely a better painter. But, like I say, I needed someone like me to grab me by the shoulders and just say, you need to relax. You are way too intense and focused on the end product. You need to enjoy the process. You need to allow yourself to ruin some creations in order to let any creation actually be created. And it's not the fault of any art teacher. That was just the particular little slither of advice that I needed. But honestly, I was arrogant, pig-headed, insecure. Would I have taken that advice, even if I'd got it? Probably not. You've got to go on your own little journey. Steve, that's interesting you say that, because Ashy, look, at the end of the day, you have to realize an art teacher's an artist as well, a lot of the time. And they've got their own personality, their own insecurities, and their own battles. And sometimes a student can end up on the receiving end of that. So if you did on a particular day, I'm sorry it happened to you. But don't listen to what's the external voice. Like, obviously consider what other people say. I hate your artwork. Okay, let me consider that. No, it makes people happy. So I know you feel that way, but no, it makes people happy, so I'm going to keep doing it. Or, your artwork's terrible, your scales are all off. But I really enjoyed making it. Maybe you should keep making it. Maybe you should pursue things that make you happy. But again, don't expect every person called a teacher to give you the perfect advice you need. It's not their fault. They're not bad at their job. They just missed a little bit of a mark on you. Here we go. And sorry, coming back there. Ooh, yes, Brittany, your charcoals. You've got to send me some, Brittany. I haven't seen your charcoals yet. And this is true. A lot of the time, you get hung up thinking you've got a particular medium or style, and sometimes getting too hung up on it, like it did for me, strangles it. And I wasn't a great painter in high school because of it. Like, I was great. I was good. I was good at painting. What do you want to see? I'll paint you anything, any style, anything. I'll do it. Easy peasy. Was there passion behind it? Was there love and care? Nah. It was lacking that. What's that thing? The Venage à Trois. Something that which you can't quite explain, but we can explain it. The thing that was lacking was real love, passion, and joy for process. I was just a glorified craftsman with coloured paint. And sorry, my sculptures are not sculptures. So you're thinking of clay sculpture, and I've done a little bit of that, but actually, my sculptures, this is what's wild here, my sculptures are, bada bing bung bung, people. So one thing that I would do in high school is I'd get people, and I'd get different people in different positions. Imagine like Greek statues, but manipulated. And so combinations of people captured from different camera angles with different lighting. And so the actual sculpture doesn't exist, but the photo of it captures something different, unique, unorthodox, almost like Salvador Dali, but in a dream state, but discobulous with the form. So it's, imagine Michelangelo ran to Salvador Dali, ran into nude. It wasn't nude because it was high school, but ran into a figure drawing class. Is basically what my sculpture was like. Really, really wild and different, guys. Untamed and raw. I look back on it and think, man, you were one crazy kid. But it was great because, like I say, I was so convinced I was a painter, which I was, that I allowed myself to loosen up with sculpture. And so my creativity at that point in my life went into sculpture rather than my painting. Funny how that works. So you got to make sure that you value play. Value play. Because I didn't value play in painting, and therefore my painting got strangled and wasn't as good. You've got to value play. And it's your ability to sit with something and play with something that you really care about. Play with it. It's so uncomfortable because you want to grab a hold of it and control it. But if you're actually able to sit with it and play with it, you allow yourself to actually allow it to change and grow on its own accord without being exactly what your plan was. A lot of the time your plan isn't actually the best outcome, guys. And accepting that when you start a picture, for example, if I had a finished result for this, if I knew the colors and result I was going to get, it just may not be as good if I just went with the flow, allowed the process to take control, allowed the painting to be what it could be. If I said, I know exactly what I want it to look like, I have the best idea, I'll strangle this process until it becomes what I want. That's similar to the person who walks into a meeting, a business meeting or a group meeting or a team meeting, and there's 10 people at the table and they know every answer. There's a marketing manager, there's a CEO, there's a operations manager, there's a chief financial officer, there's a chief products officer. But one person knows all the answers? It seems unlikely. Most likely there's a little bit of every answer and a collaboration for correction. In the same way with a painting, how would you possibly have all the answers? In the wild spectrum of shapes and colours and ideas, an art that wants to be unique and not just a replicated craft, how could you possibly know exactly what you're after? You need to play. You need to lose yourself. You need to enjoy yourself and see what comes out of it. That's what I believe. Cheers, JJ. And absolutely, Brittany, I'm looking forward to it. I can already see one there as your profile picture, so I'm pretty excited to see some, to be honest. The pageant of the Masters every year at Laguna Beach. No, I haven't, Steve, but it sounds like I need to check it out. Now, Lord, please don't get it twisted. When you say he always knows what to say, that's not because I always have the answer. And I'm really big on this. If you've got to answer every question on the face of the planet, 66% of the time, your answer should be, I don't know. If you're saying, I know the answer more than a third of the time, you're either hanging around the wrong crowd or you're just telling lies. Now, we are talking about something very, very niche while we're here. We're not talking about craft. And actually, if we did, there'd be a lot more I don't knows. Like, we occasionally get the question in here about watercolors. Don't ask me about watercolors, guys. I don't know. I haven't used watercolors all that much. Not enough to call myself any sort of crafter with watercolors, artist with watercolors. I have used gouache a little bit, only enough to understand the medium because I like the gum in it. But the reason I go into that is to say that if we talk about a wider repertoire of subjects, there needs to be more I don't knows. If you want to talk about cars, if you want to talk about gallery business models, we can go to a point, but my answers need to quickly become I don't know. Yeah, I will do, Steve. I absolutely will. And plus, the problem is we get so insecure that we feel like if we're in a group of friends, new or old, and our answer to things is I don't know, we think the group will think less of us and listen to us less. When it's not the case, it's the opposite to our little human brains. Instead, if we're able to tell our friends or our loved ones or our new acquaintances, I don't know, we show them that we're confident enough in ourselves to know when the answer's not there. And when we say, I do know the answer to this, it's this, how much more believable does it make it? If I said, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I know exactly what the answer is, that's pretty believable. Rather than, that's the answer, 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 that's the answer. Especially when that person says that, the second person, and you think, with about 2 or 3 of those, that doesn't sound quite right. Jerry, can you Google that? Like, that person's not going to have a trustworthy outcome on the one that really matters. But when you really do know an answer, and you put your label on it, and you say, this is what I believe, it'll be listened to a lot more if leading up to it, you weren't putting your label on everything that you didn't fully understand. But that takes a certain level of vulnerability and security. And the problem is people say like, oh, don't be insecure and be secure. Don't be insecure or be secure in yourself, blah, blah, blah. And it makes you feel like actually there's some people who are secure and some people who are insecure. The truth is, guys, I believe all humans have a level of insecurity just built into us. And our job is to try and address that insecurity. And the ones who say, nah, I never get insecure, they're just the ones who've managed to push it as deep as humanly possible to forget it's even there. That sounds healthy. So, accept the fact that you've got insecurity. That's the number one thing. You're human. You get insecure. Accept that. And then once you've accepted that, the next step to do is to say, it's okay to have insecurity, but here's how I deal with it. Here's how I deal with it. And so when you want to say, I don't know, or you want to jump in there and overextend or whatever it might be, guys, I'm not quite sure. I'll just put some paint behind this here. 1 second, team. whatever it might be, realize that when it comes to sharing and exposing yourself, those feelings of insecurity you get, everyone gets that. Don't think, oh, The Rock doesn't ever, Kevin Hart or The Rock or Brad Pitt, I bet they never feel this feeling that I'm currently feeling. Nah. I don't know them, honestly. I haven't read their books if they've got any. I haven't seen behind the scenes. But they're human, and so I'm fairly confident they do get insecure. They do second guess themselves. Imposter syndrome. I don't like imposter syndrome. I don't fully understand it, guys, psychologically. When it comes to imposter syndrome, I sort of think it's a fancy way of lumping together a few different anxieties. But I don't think we ever think we shouldn't be. I think deep down inside, we do know that we're stars, famous or beautiful or deserving of love. And to say that we'd wake up and feel imposter syndrome, oh, I shouldn't be this individual, or I can't do that because I'm not that individual. I don't fully understand it at this stage, but I think actually deep down inside, we do believe that if we found something beautiful, that others should see it. And we do believe that we deserve love. I really do believe that we think that internally, deep down. Nimi. First off, Nimis, was I expecting a message from you? You need to get in touch. And yes, this is a commission, so this one will not be available. Coming back here. Yes, Steve, absolutely. Burning Man. That needs to happen. I've heard great things. I saw a drone footage of it. It looked really organized, actually. And Brittany, this is a great question. Can we use insecurities as strength in your art? A form of dealing with it as well. So dealing with it, now we're getting outside of my repertoire in terms of understanding, because now that's talking about a psychological thing. You've got a condition or an issue psychologically, and it needs to be dealt with. When you say dealt with, do you mean fix it or make yourself into what you want to be? Or are you sick and you're trying to meet an expectation for what you believe a regular human is? As if in the 50 people in this chat room, there's one person who's regular. The point I'm making there is to say, yes, for the first part of the question, which I can answer, an exposed weakness exposes strength. So for me, I felt like anything at the start of my art career that stopped the picture from being more realistic, whether it be the dryness of the paint, the wetness of the paint, the too much texture, the colours being slightly off, the surface not being perfect, the frame and the lighting not being perfectly correct, I felt like that made my work less. And so I got so hung up on every little factor, I was strangling it, that the actual result became lacking. So what was the solution for that? It was actually, forget the result. Stop it, Seb. Stop it. No one cares about the result. What they want is a beautiful process. They don't want a result that you've strangled the life out of to create, that you don't love, that you actually resent now because of how hard it was to create. Create something with a beautiful process, with the same amount of effort, but in every moment of effort, infused with joy, with vitality. That's something that people want to get involved in. So for me, my weakness of overthinking every little area, of trying to strangle something to make it the finished result I wanted. And this is just one small little weakness, this little insecurity that I had to make something to please everyone else. To finally realize that and to think, all right, completely focus on process, completely focus on the journey you go on when a painting gets made. That exposed my actual strength to actually be wild, free, joyful, and vitalized as you create the painting, and then to create a beautiful result from that. But without exposing my weakness and acknowledging that, there was no chance in finding my true strength when it came to making art. So whatever it might be, sometimes people have their death. Beethoven was deaf, and he made his best music after he lost his ability to hear. What does that tell you? You'd be like, well, don't tell me an exposed weakness exposes strength. It doesn't, it just makes you a little bit weaker, but it's a fancy saying to say. If that was the case, then Beethoven wouldn't have made his best music after he lost his ability to listen. Really important. That's one of the biggest cases throughout history. Really important to look at that one. And so what you need to do is stop looking at your weaknesses as the thing that's holding you back and stops you from being perfect, and start seeing those as part of your product, part of your prize. The slingshot, sometimes you'd say, this isn't a weakness, this isn't a good thing, it's a bad thing. It's set me back. If it set you back, I need you to think about it differently. If it set you back, think about it like a slingshot. It pulled you back, but it's going to slingshot you forward. It's changed the way you think. It's changed your history. It's changed the way you act. It's had a huge alteration on your ability to do whatever it is you wanted to do with your life. Now, it could have been all sorts of things, a tragedy. It could be all sorts of things that change the way in which you can pursue the next years of your life. But through that, it can be part of the product that sends you. So, anyway, what I'm trying to say, come back to that fundamental piece. An exposed weakness exposes strength. All you have to do is get the confidence to acknowledge and expose your weakness. And from that, you'll see where you're so strong. Things you never realized that made you so unique and strong and special, they'll just appear. Not out of thin air as if they weren't there before, but you'll suddenly have the clarity to see them. So expose your weaknesses to expose those strengths. Anyway. Haha, that's interesting. That's a good one. I didn't realize that. Because he lost his hearing, he gained other senses, including feeling, so he felt vibrations. Good for Beethoven. And let's get a little bit of this white through here. And Rusty, I tell you what, if you're here to hang out, you're more than welcome to be here. But I think if you hang around, I can't guarantee it, but I think you might start liking the art. And on top of that, I reckon even if you don't like the art, by hanging on to this live and listening to my rants, and they are rants, you might just come around to understanding what type of art you do like. Even if it's not mine, I'd find a huge sense of pleasure in helping you find it. Oh, thanks, Rusty. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And realize that art, like I say, it's just a raw form. We're just selling expression here, selling a feeling. And so, lost trail of thought completely there. I had it, it's gone now. Oh, look, Nimmies, you can have a rant that makes sense. But it depends. Do you call it off on a conversational tangent, or do you refer to it as a rant? Doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter. Okay, now we're going to splice a little bit of blue into the white and get an in-between color. So we've got our whites down and our blues down. We've got full coverage over the canvas. And so through these two colors, you should see a few little waves licking around the back of her dress, this darker rock shape that she's standing on. You'll see this lovely organic, it is organic, it's made out of, it looks like giant leaves, dress that she's wearing. You won't see the flowers just yet, but they're through here and through here across her bosom. You'll see her arms, there's lots of form there and shape, but not a lot of color yet. That'll come with more layers. And then we'll see these flashes, these spiky moments. That's again from her organic outfit that she's wearing. These longer, tall shapes, This is the trees and a little bit of a hill in the background there of a little other island. Love it. Absolutely love it. And then the negative space. That gives her room to breathe. That makes her not feel like she's caged in, but exploding out. That's so, so important. And now, as we add those in-between colours, hopefully we'll start to see a little bit more definition in the muscles of her arms, because she is quite defined and strong. And then her face as well, her cheek especially here. She's got a little bit there, and then her knee around here, and a few other little tones within those waves. And then if we get really excited, we'll add a bit more blue again, make it darker, and cut some lines into this rock face. And that'll bring us through. Sorry. La Vista di Majera. Open my eye then. Look, hang around and let's see if we can open your eye. Figuratively speaking. Open your eyes. That's what art teachers usually say. What's the saying? I don't want you to look, I want you to see, or something. I never understood that one. But art teachers would say that. And Jules, welcome on in. Good to have you here. And what happened to May? Hold on, I have to scroll back. I want to see this. May. I'm doing well. Oh, congratulations, May. You've got your makeup diploma. That's phenomenal. That's really, really cool. Sorry for missing that the first time around. Good for you, May. Congratulations. That's a pretty fun step. All right. And now you'll start to see this. It's in between. Medium grey in between our dark blues and our whites. You want to see how potent this pigment is. This, guys, this is what I want you to understand about this pigment. This new mixing technique I've got going on at the moment, this is layer 1. We have never ever seen the degree of saturation and pigmentation in color. That's layer 1. That is a 220 sanded ACM panel. ACM panel? PCP? PCP. ACM, same thing. Panel, sanded with 220 grit sandpaper. Put the sizing liquid onto it, which is like a glue that creates a barrier, so no matter what happens to the original panel, wood, stone, whatever, keeps the painting safe. And then a gesso to help bite onto. I added that on this morning. And then the paint. And if you look at this, look at the color of it. It hasn't lost its intensity, but usually when you do layer 1 with acrylics or oils, you'll sometimes see it go and become a little bit tacky. But look at that. Look at that blue. Look at that. Like, trust me, if it's really, really blue in the screen for you guys, that's what it's like here. That's what we're seeing here. And so as we add more layers, we're going to see more and more popping color coming off the surface. But it's just amazing on the first layer to see so much intensity of pigmentation. Really, really fun. As you can see, I love colors. It's what I'm all about. But seeing that level of pigment is always just something fantastic. Let me see here. Brittany. What subject? Honestly, Brittany, I don't think it's one size fits all. I don't think that there is one subject which stands out more than all the other subjects. I think there's, depending on how you were brought up, your culture, your personality, what makes you, you, defines what will move you. For some people, that's a landscape, that's an abstract, that's a cultural work, that's a visually stimulating work, that's realism, that's all sorts of different things. But the one thing we need to understand more than anything is that, it's not about the picture itself creating the emotion. The art has nothing to do with the actual feeling. The art doesn't have feeling into it. It creates the feeling within the person who views it. And so it's all on the viewer. And I know you read this in a million art books, it's said in a million art quotes, but you, the viewer, decide. Art's subjective. We've heard it a million times. What's good art and what's bad art, because you decide what invokes feelings within you. If it makes you happy, sad, angry, if it gives you a vigorous and vitalizing feeling, it's the viewer that decides. And so it's the art's job to become what it needs to be to invoke those feelings from the viewer. But a face isn't going to do it for everyone. And a landscape, for example, for me personally, and I'm not saying all art or all viewers, but just me and me personally, it is the faces that do it for me. Old faces, portraits, zoomed right in. So it literally hits the sides of the face, no background whatsoever, right in close. And the reason that does it for me is I see every wrinkle, contour, and line in a million different colors kaleidoscoping together and just becoming something where I can see the history and the stories of that person just through the lines on their face. And I love capturing that. That's capturing someone's story in a single image better than I've ever seen a photo do. And so that's what speaks to me. But that doesn't speak to everyone. That's just my little thing that really gets me excited. I love that. The evidence of crow's feet, a million smiles that have been had that now appear on the person's face. That's what's incredible. I think art really comes into its own in that moment. But that's just me. Sorry, coming back here. Nimmies, was it me who wiped your brain out, just yarning so much? And who left there? Ashy, sorry, I might have missed you, but Ashy, have a great night. We'll catch you later. And then, what's user talking about? Congrats. Congrats us, please, bro. Today is Kazakhstan's National Day. All right, I wasn't aware. Congratulations, Kazakhstan, on your National Day. It's the first I'm hearing about it. Provided it's a day of positivity, then I'm all about it. There we go. Can I cook? Actually, guys, I can. I've got a select group of dishes which I can cook. I can't do everything, but I have spent a bit of time cooking as I've grown up. So one thing I can't do, guys, honestly, I'm not a great baker. Full disclosure, baking's not my skill. But cooking, cooking I'm a little bit better at. Oh, that's good, Nimmies. I'm glad. I'm glad. And I've got a movie to watch tonight. If anyone's seen it, I want to hear the review from you. Who knows the Dungeons and Dragons movie with the bard and the strong lady? Who has seen that? Because I am watching that tonight. So you perfect man material? It depends on what scale you're talking about. For some men, you might think that actually I'm very, very soft because I believe in exposing, being vulnerable, exposing your feelings and being honest. And in that sense, probably less masculine. But honestly, for me personally, when I was younger, more insecure, I thought I had to be a certain mold of a man to make everyone else happy or to think that I was a man. If I look at my feelings then and my feelings now, I was less of a man then, definitely. And being more comfortable in my skin, more willing to share, more than I ever was. Think they mean physically? Really? So you're saying, like, physically, yeah, I guess it's nice, but like at the end of the day, when it comes to being a man, are we saying that someone who say, here's a great example. Is Stephen Hawking not a man? not a lot of a man. Last time I checked, he furthered science and the human race in the most incredible ways, and he's a fantastic individual. And yet he couldn't move in a wheelchair with a frail body. But he was a man. And so, in that sense, it'd be really cool if society as a whole started defining men by not only by the way they thought, but also by their intentions and what they aspired to do, rather than by how they looked. Like, I get it, but let's flick that over just a little bit. Let's get people like Stephen Hawking and say, yeah, that's a real man. That's what we want to aspire to be as men. We want to have goals. We want to have a vision, and we want to have a dream. And actually, not to look down on people, but we want to value people who have found a dream, found a vision, who have goals, and who pursue them. That's something I can get on board with. Ooh, see Lord Skylar. That's what happened to me. Tonight's my second go round. So we're both falling asleep watching the movie. This is not a good sign. This is not a good sign. But you've told it's worth watching. Nimmy's perfect. All right, I'm going to give it another go. I fell asleep last night. Tonight's the night, and then we're good to go. Lord Skylar, let's both try again tonight, and let's see how we get on. We've both, do I say failed? We've failed on round one. We're gonna improve and do better on round two. There's a 2 feet on the rocks. Oh, Brittany. An even better way of putting it. Forget what I said. We need to admire people's efforts to better themselves. Absolutely. Absolutely. That is just well said. Potently well said. And the fact that we're all different ages, from different places, doing different things with different dreams, means that we need to stop putting ourselves or being scared by others' success or progress or lack of or anything like that. Just admire someone's own journey and desire to go a little bit further, in whatever direction that might be. Wow. Nimmies. That's pretty cool. Strength. What I believe the definition of strength is. Now that's getting fairly philosophical. The definition of strength. Can someone, before I answer and make a fool of myself, I'd love to hear what the definition is in the dictionary. What is the definition of strength in the dictionary? Does it take a completely physical standpoint? Or does it, in a sense, go a little bit deeper and encourage something more? La Vestida, you get to travel around the world. No, you're not a scientist, but you are a traveler. You are making people happy. And if that's the thing that's actually providing you fulfillment in your life, don't ever use the word just to describe it. So, sorry to give you a lecture, but that's a pretty cool job. One of my friends is a pilot, and he knows lots of air hostesses and air hosts who do amazing things, traveling all around the world and living the most incredible lives. They see countries, they move around places, they've made incredible friends. Honestly, sounds pretty cool to me. And if you're from New Zealand, you get some pretty cool uniforms. An oil metering engineer. Okay, we've got some cool people in the room today. I'm an artist. Is it dangerous? That's the question. There we go. A little bit in there. A little bit through here. Excuse my whistling team. add... I'm going to add this into the sky, or is it slightly off the colour? It's slightly off. There we go. Beautiful. And so these little dabbing points around here are the flowers. Samuel, favourite artist? Well, that's a good question. Who is my favourite artist? Who is my favourite artist? This is a good question. I'm going to put down this brush because it's too big now. I'm going to swap onto a slightly smaller brush. I'm not ignoring it. I'm still thinking about it. I always say Van Gogh, but after you've said it enough times, you do wear the answer out and you start to diverge and change. So I'm just wondering to myself right now, have I gone through a stage of diverging and changing who my favorite artist is? But honestly, if I was to say top 5, I would say Van Gogh, Picasso, Andy Warhol, Da Vinci, and Monet. Give me 6, I'll put Rembrandt in there. Give me 7, I'll put Michelangelo in there. Top 7. And that's cool. You've got a niche, you enjoy it. I like that. We're going to use a smaller brush, guys. Very, very small. My favorite artist is Madonna. It could be. This is a very, very small brush, but it's going to help us capture in blue a few of these other little minor moments. Minor moments. The little moments that when after you see the major picture of the painting, there's those little bits that actually draw you back into it. That you see, that keep bringing you back to the painting, make it special for you. They make you always feel like no matter how often you look at a painting, there's another shape or a contour or a moment to see. That's what these sort of colours do. There we go. But we're limited with a small brush in that we can only capture a certain amount every time we stroke. So we have to get very purposeful. Where are we going? Why are we going there? There we go. Beautiful. Ooh. Finding alternative resources. I like it. Pop artists. Andy Warhol was a pop artist, but honestly, I'm not a big fan of his Campbell's cans and things like that. I like 7 Elvises. Or is it 8 Elvises? I think it's 8 Elvises. I like those Marilyn Monroe pictures. I used to really enjoy those. I've probably seen them too many times now. But they were amazing when I first saw them. They've been replicated too many times. I sort of forget what the originals look like. Agree. 60s and 70s music gets a vote from me. So you can see here, now we've got a solid foundation of blue. Now, I want to amaze you here. This painting is not going to be blue. In fact, there's very, very little blue in the picture we're choosing to form. But it's going to create that base for the other colors to build on and manipulate through. So deep underneath, you're going to see these colors dancing over this lady's portrait. Which is going to be pretty special. There we go. here. See how I'm dabbing it into the liquid a lot more with a smaller brush, but it's allowing me to get these details, which are smaller. And then when you come on right down here, right down to the bottom, and cut into this rock face here a little bit. Help me capture some of this. Then across here, just a little bit. And down through here. We might actually, that's just a little bit small. Got this spreading brush here, which we're going to use for this rock, because it's going to add in a lot of texture while not having a huge amount of, like an area effect. Not adding in a huge amount of pigmentation to any given spot, but giving a good amount of spread to where the paint wants to go. It's lovely. Just through there like that. Just through there. Keeping the paint wet too. There's always this temptation to let it dry brush out, but just keep filling the brush up. Getting a bit more and splashing it around. See that? Adding a little bit of detail into this little rock face we got going on here. There we go. Beautiful. And a little bit more. Oh my god. You're a little bit cooler than I am. Just so slay. I'd learnt the word slay, but unfortunately I played too much nerdy games in my time. And so when you say words like slay, I always think of a knight slaying a dragon or like some RPG game. So you lose me a wee bit, but or you gain me because I'm super into those games. But that, my friends, is that's right. Yeah, he's like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. That is Shrek. That is Shrek rescuing Fiona right there. That is some slay carry on. Just need a bit more water in this. Run it out. So slay. So slay. All right, I'm on board. I'm learning the same now. There we go. Petite nose coming out here a little bit. Just a little bit. Then arcing in here. There we go. Just a touch. Put just a wee bit more in here. The brush is just too small. There we go. We're going to cut that face in a little bit too when we get the additional white. But that'll do for now. Perfect. Thanks, Jules. All right, team. Nevish, it is absolutely fantastic to have you here. Not a constructive comment. Ooh. That's actually 100% correct, guys. I'm not even going to lie about it. I used to play RuneScape and I loved it to bits. It was super fun. Loved every second of it. All right, team. We're going to let that coat get completely dry, and then over the top of it, we're going to come in with greens next. Yeah, called it. I had a character called Sebois, and I'd run around and cut down trees and make arrows. I was a member at one point, which was expensive. It was like $5 a month. Did it for 2 months. Thought I was a big spender. Right, sorry. Greens. Artist block and being overwhelmed. Brittany, I will address that question, but after I get the description of what tomorrow is going to hold for the Hula Girl. The Hula Girl is going to get greens through her organic parts and the trees in the background there. A couple of deeper browns to bring up this rock hill here and the little rock face over here. The blues, we've used blues already, but we're talking turquoises and blues spliced with greens in these waves a little bit. And then deep magentas and big clumps around here to capture these flowers in these two areas. After that, we move on to our warm tones. Warm vermilions, crimsons, scarlets, oranges, raw orange, all through this part, all through a character, and glinting through here. The goal is to capture a little bit of sun coming through and sort of reverberating out from her and behind her all through it. And then yellow. Glossy coats of yellow over the entire thing to increase the sunlight and warmth in the overall picture. That's going to be our step by step. That being said, team, coming back there, artist block and being overwhelmed. Overwhelmed, that is something that everyone goes through and it's not unique for artists. So the advice you get from psychologists or experts on how to deal with being overwhelmed, I find no matter who it comes from, usually the advice applies. Artist block. Artists will get block because you're dealing with raw emotions and it can be very, very tough to actually channel and control it. So typically with artist block, it's always, although everyone will have advice, sometimes you'll need it directly from artists, but only sometimes to actually help you channel it and deal with it. In terms of for me, you'll see here, we do a lot of talking. We do a lot of engaging together, and one thing that can cause blocks is isolations. When you're left with your own devices to make your art by yourself, you can get stuck. And it's not so much a block that's occurred in your craft, it's actually just you as a human have become isolated and lonely. And so you've used, or that thing has actually started to control what you're making. So involve other people, go into a new environment, change your current approach, environment and people base to actually allow it to alter the product. When I'm feeling like I need real stimulation from people, I'll go places like a beach or a park where I know people are going to come up to me and ask me questions and talk with me. And so during my professional day, I'm actually being engaged by people and brought into the real world for real stimulation and interpersonal connection. One really important one is you'll notice we're quiet here. It's just me talking in a silent room. Now that's really important because when I need to, we can grab ourselves music. I've got a playlist, carefully curated, and it's songs that really get me in a flow state, ready to paint. Have your own playlist, pick out your favorite songs, and then don't listen to it. Hold on to it, and when you need it, when you feel that block coming on, put on a playlist and go. Don't think once you're blocked, you're going to make the playlist. By then it's too late. Get the playlist ready to go, so when the block comes, the past you that was in a good form, in a good place, and ready to paint, or do charcoals, or whatever it is you do, now has their playlist ready to go. Most importantly, have the toolbox of tricks. I call it a toolbox of tricks, but have it ready before you get into a block. A lot of the time we think we're in a block, and once you're already in the rut, that's hard to get out of because you didn't bring the tools you needed to get out of it. But if you're in your high point, you're like, wow, I'm making art fantastically. I'm on a roll. Perfect. Get your tools and tricks ready now because you've got a crash on the way. Maybe tomorrow, maybe in a month, maybe in 3 years. Who knows when the block's coming, but be prepared for it so you can deal with it. And in that toolbox, like I say, is your playlist, is the idea of going to new locations, doing new things, maybe a new type of craft altogether. Maybe it's sculpture, maybe it's watercolors or gouache, maybe it's removing yourself from the current medium you're using to get a fresh perspective on what you're up to. I hope I explained. Kōrero. Yeah, I didn't realize you're a Kiwi, but good to have you here. Cheers, mate. Guys, that concludes our session today, though. It's been phenomenal to have you all here. It's been phenomenal, if Ryan, if you're still here, Steve, if you're still here, Jules, obviously, absolute pleasure, always. And a few new regulars, which is always fun. We've done a mono painting today. It's not finished. It's the base coat. But as you can see, the form is landing all in the right place. So in the smaller picture I'm looking at here, there's a few adjustments that need to be done with the lighter colors, and that can come in with, bada bing bang boom, our lime greens tomorrow. Everywhere where those light blues are, lime greens can replace them, so we can bring form into that dress, down through these rocks, into a few of these waves, and around this bosom with those lime greens before we start splashing in magentas, which is going to be really fun. Richard, entirely irrelevant, but how many shirts? I typically have about 10 to 15 shirts at any given time, and they are all except for 2 shirts from op shops. And the 2 shirts that aren't from op shops were hand-me-downs from my younger brother, who's bigger than I am. So they were hand-me-ups. Anyway, kakites, matewa, which means until next time.